NASCAR has completed testing at the Circuit of the Americas track in Austin, Texas. Circuit of the Americas was added to the NASCAR schedule last year, taking one of the Texas points-paying race dates, and it'll be the first ever NASCAR race at the 3.41-mile road course, one of the 7 road courses that we will see in the NASCAR Cup Series. Trucks and Xfinity will also be running there from May 21st to May 23rd. The test today was a tire test, so Goodyear, NASCAR got together, and I'm sure they threw different types of tire combinations out there, and the drivers that tested were defending champion Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., the 2017 champion, and the 2012 champion Brad Keselowski. And you may be wondering, why? Why these guys? Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott are the best guys on road courses. Why would you give them extra track time? Well, in my opinion, at least this is why I think it's doing it, these are the best guys per each manufacturer. You have to have one for each manufacturer, I'm guessing, to test it because the different bodies, different cars, and that stuff. They will get the best information for you. They will run the best laps at this track. They will quickly adapt and learn the track. So they are the best guys to put the most wear and tear or the best laps together on the car to really get good runs, get a correct, I don't know what the word is, a correct look at the tire wear and how the tires wear and which tires are better to use for this race. That's just my opinion. NASCAR didn't say that correctly, but, Chase Elliott, obviously, he had that 4-win streak of road courses. Martin Truex Jr., he's won at Watkins Glen, Sonoma. He is a very good road course racer. Brad Keselowski has not won at a road course, but he has had a couple of top 5s and led some laps there. So those were the 3 best guys, each guy being the best of their manufacturer, I guess was why they picked those guys. But so before we get into it, I want to show you a few clips. These clips are from NASCAR's social media pages and also the Circuit of the Americas page, their Twitter, Instagram, whatever page. Now we are going to look at some of the quotes from the drivers today. As I said earlier, Martin Truex Jr. for Joe Gibbs Racing, Chase Elliott for Hendrick Motorsports, and of course Brad Keselowski for Team Penske, all tested today. This is really the first time we've seen multiple. It's definitely the first time we've seen multiple stock cars on track at Circuit of the Americas. Remember, back in 2019, Tony Stewart went there just as a quick test or something, for a. I don't even know why. I guess it was for this, but he went down there, he tested, he ran some laps. And then also Formula One drivers at the time for Haas, Romain Grosjean and then Kevin Magnussen also drove the car a bit to get a feel for a stock car, just to kind of have fun for a promotional video, that kind of thing. And so they really that was really the first, I think back in 2013, a little bit after a year after the track opened, I think Furniture Row went there and just ran some laps with Kurt Busch or something. But that was the first real look at the track with a stock car. And then today is the first time we have seen active drivers with their current teams with a car built for the track on the racetrack together. So, obviously we're not going to see that until May. This race is until the end of May. May 23rd to be exact. None of these teams have ran races here. None of these teams have ran here, well, with the exception of these three. So it's going to be new for everyone. But unlike a lot of races this year, this race will have an hour of practice, I think an hour, and then it will also have qualifying. So they will have some track time before this race to get things figured out, to figure out how good your car is, to figure out how to drive the track, to get your braking zone or braking marks in, to figure out different things about the track. So we will have some time to kind of get all the teams on the track and driving laps, but these three teams did this for the tire test today. Here are some of the things that they had to say. Brad Keselowski said, "Turn 1 is designed as though fans said, how can I have the most calamity in that corner at the start?" Circuit of the Americas, we've gone over this track in prior videos. We have gone on my video game on my phone with the Real Racing 3. We've looked at the track map from an image from online that I brought over to the video. It's a very unique track, and this track was built for Formula One. It's been the host of the United States Grand Prix since 2012. They didn't run it last year because of COVID, but it's a very unique track. It's, as I said, it's a long track, 3.41 miles, but it's got all different types of turns. You got different lengths of straightaways, high speeds, heavy braking zones, almost turning completely around in turn 1. You got a hard left on turn 1. Turn 12 is just like that. You got a hard left turn, but you're going really fast down it. And I think they said the high speed today was 185. And if I think where that is where it is, that's going to be a problem for some of these guys. You're going to lock up the brakes. You might make some contact with some guys, but if it's going to turn 12 on the back stretch, that's a very hard left turn, and that's a lot of speed carrying down there. Elevation changes on this track, going up the hill in turn 1 and quickly going back down the hill into the S's. I mean, it's a really unique track. I've heard it's an amazing facility. I hope I can go this summer, but I've heard it's an amazing facility. But as I said, turn 1, it's a wide turn 1. You've got a lot of space from the exit of pit road to the grass. You have a ton of space. Cars will be able to go 4 or 5 wide. I think we'll get to the quote later. I think Truex or Keselowski said it's going to be like the front stretch at Pocono. You're going to have guys diving to the bottom, diving to the top. You're going to have 4 or 5 wide racing going into turn 1. That could be really fun to watch. That could cause a ton of problems, but it'll be fun for the fans. I really am. I had this in my preseason as one of the most anticipated races of the year. I think Bristol Dirt was my top, and I think this was my second. But so Keselowski said it's such a rhythm section. When referring to the S's, he said it's such a rhythm section. You feel like you're doing a tango dance with your feet. So, the S's, I'm sure you got areas where you can really hit the gas and get some speed, and then you have to lift off and tap your brakes a bit. So I'm sure that's what he means. You kind of have to get it right. If you want to make the most out of your lap or make a pass, you're going to have to, accelerate, brake, all that stuff at the right time. It's going to be difficult. And then as for Martin Truex Jr., he said that the track stuck with him as a hybrid of Sonoma and Watkins Glen, tracks that NASCAR has been going to for quite a while. In fact, they used to be the only road courses on the schedule. But he said there's some fast sections, there's some slow sections. It's got the older asphalt wearing tires out more like Sonoma, but it's got the really high-speed straights and really hard braking zones like Watkins Glen down the backstretch. It's a mix of both. And I like that analogy. You look at this track, you're going to have some high-speed portions like Watkins Glen. You're going to have some heavy braking zones like Watkins Glen. But there's also some slow sections of the track very similar to Sonoma. Obviously not the same elevation, twists and turns, but, it's going to be similar in terms of speed, in terms of just that kind of generally in terms of that. There's not, obviously all road courses are built different, so they're not going to have exact similarities, but as Truex said, I agree with him on that. You look at this track, there are some areas that are very high speed. You go from turn 11 to turn 12 down that long back stretch, you're going to be going very fast, and then you go heavy braking into the next turn, and it's the same thing from turn 20 to turn 1. Long front stretch, you go up a hill, and it's a hard left turn that you're going to have to brake really hard for. But then you look at after turn 12, there's a lot of zigs and zags. You don't really go that fast through the horseshoe and all that. You know, you're going to have to lift a lot. You're going to have to brake a lot. There's a lot of sharp corners there. So that's kind of the slower area of the racetrack. So I agree with them there. I think so far that's an accurate representation, at least from what I've seen. And then let's see what else. I'm reading this NBC Sports article. I'm going to go to another article here in a second, but here is what Chase Elliott had to say. He said, "We're not going near as fast as those cars do," referring to Formula One, MotoGP, which have ran at Circuit of the Americas since 2012, 2013. But he said, "We're not going as fast as those cars do, but I feel the product and the competitiveness on track and us being able to race around each other is much more feasible with the speeds we're going and how big and heavy these cars are." Obviously, stock cars, it takes a while for them to get through their accelerations quicker. Formula One cars are so different from stock cars. I mean, do I really have to go through it? You guys know what a Formula One car looks like, first of all, and then a stock car, you guys know the speeds of stock cars, and Formula One cars are pretty dang fast. They get up through the gears pretty quick. They're lighter. You guys get the general idea. Formula One cars are faster. So the stock cars will be slower. They're heavier getting through these turns. They'll be harder to turn, I'm sure. But I think it'll be a really interesting race. And as Elliott said, the different speeds and stuff, I think it'll be fun to see if cars can go side by side in the S's and what happens. If you hit one of those curbs, I think they're going to bring some turtles from the Charlotte Roval to the track. Where are they going to place those? Are they going to be in the S's? Are they going to be at the inside of some of these hard turns like at turn 1? I'm not sure yet. There's a lot of details we don't know, but that's just a question I thought of now. Elliott also said, "I know it's not the oohs and ahs of going through the S's and however fast those guys go, but I do think the racing is better to watch. I think that's what's made NASCAR popular over the years, so I'm not sure why it wouldn't be different here." As I said, you know, Formula One, while they are faster cars, while they do, go much faster, they accelerate faster and all that stuff, the racing there is not as great in terms of side-by-side racing, moving people, because in Formula One, you can't. If you damage the car, it can ruin your day pretty quickly. You know, whereas NASCAR, you can rear end someone and punch the nose in and you can still go on. You may have little aero problems, but you can still go on. I mean, we've seen guys win the race with damages before. Whereas in Formula One, it's much more dangerous because, you know, it's an open cockpit. I know they have the halo now, but it's still a very dangerous thing to do. And you get penalties for touching each other, so you can't really race side by side and risk the contact because it can ruin you and the other guy's day. Just a little bit of contact can wreck the cars. But then there's time penalties and all that stuff. Whereas in NASCAR, you can go in there, you can bump doors a little bit, and it's fine. No one's gonna get a penalty. No one's gonna get wrecked out of the race. Maybe if obviously if you do what Chase Elliott did at Bristol last year, but you get my point. NASCAR, the cars are built for that kind of racing, whereas Formula One is not built for that. Formula One, they can race side by side, yes, but they are not meant to go in these sharp S's areas and make contact. That can do a lot of damage to those cars. NASCAR, you may get a tire rub, but you'll be fine. Now, on to this MSN article about the test and some of the more quotes from the drivers. Truex said, "I would say the start of this race would probably be pretty cool because you got that long front straightaway and it's very, very wide and you go into a very, very sharp, slow corner. We have races at places like Pocono where we go 5 or 6 wide down the front stretch, and there's potential for that to happen here." I was saying that earlier. I didn't have the direct quote. Here's where I got it from. I agree with that because, you know, you look at the turn 1, you look at it from a satellite, you look at it from video games. It's a very wide turn 1, not just the turn itself, but the area before it, the area after it. You got some runoff room. There's a lot of room to make passes. And if there's like a late restart in this race, I would not be surprised to see guys like a 5 wide dive into turn 1 for the lead. Could you imagine the first ever NASCAR race at COTA being decided because someone dove to the inside 5 wide from a 6 or something? Woo! That would be cool. But yeah, I really think that'll be a fun turn. That and turn 12, I think, will be the most fun to watch all day long at this race. But especially on restarts, turn one's going to be, that's going to be something. I think turn one, lap one of the race, that's going to be where everyone's looking, because that could get ugly, but it also could be really cool. So, I mean, it's going to be a fun race. I think it's going to be a very fun race. My learning curve was really steep. I had no practice before. I had never seen this track before. I had never watched a race here before. That's what Martin Truex Jr. said. I literally watched 5 minutes of in-car footage last night. I think it was of a Porsche going around this place, and I was like, okay, it looks pretty straightforward. But then you get out here, and you got the elevation changes, and you got the blind corners. Those are the things that take time to learn, because you have to go off instinct instead of what you're seeing. So Truex did not have much preparation for this, it looks like. I'm sure he's been prepping for the races that we're already going to or have been to. Homestead, Daytona Road Course, Daytona, and then this upcoming race at Las Vegas. I'm sure he didn't put too much effort into this test, and I don't blame him. It's not the end of the world if he wasn't prepared for this. It's a tire test for Goodyear. But, I think that will be interesting, because these drivers, they don't have that much film of Cup cars on the track. They might get some after this week, and they might share it with other teams. Gibbs will share it with Gibbs, I'm sure. Hendrick with Hendrick, Penske with Penske. But will they share it with the other teams? I don't know. So you may have to go and look at some of the Formula One races, some of the sports car races that have happened at this track, see how guys take the turns, see how they drive the track. So I think that'll be interesting to see how some of these teams prepare for this race. Keselowski said, "It's different than a lot of road courses we go to. Very high speed. This section over here, you're 185 miles per hour, which is pretty fast, and then you slow down to 30. So 185 to 30, that's a heck of a ride. I know it would make my wife sick if she was riding with me." That is a pretty steep decline in speed. If you did not know that, well, now you know. 185, that's a 155 mile an hour difference. We don't see that anywhere in the Cup Series. Watkins Glen, we don't see that. Sonoma, we don't see that. The Roval, we don't see that. So 185 to 30, that's going to be chaotic. Drivers are going to lock up, I'm sure. Drivers are going to wheel hop going into that turn. They may rear end each other, cause a wreck or something. That turn could be more interesting than turn one. I'd say those two were already on the top of my turns to look out for or something for this race. But, man, it's going to be something. This race is going to be something, and we're already hearing about it for the Circuit of the Americas, NASCAR, Texas Grand Prix, whatever the heck they're calling it. But I'm looking forward to this race. I think this will be one of the highlights it's already one of the highlights in terms of looking forward to, but it could be one of the highlights of the year in terms of the racing, all the different sections of the track. The heavy braking zones make great passing opportunities. I'm looking forward to this race. I hope you are too. That is all I have. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your other NASCAR friends. Going to Austin here in just 2.5, 3 months. I mean, we're getting closer and closer. After the Bristol Dirt Race, I'm sure all eyes will be on this race in terms of looking to the future. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's our next road course on our schedule. But man, the inaugural Circuit of the Americas NASCAR race, ladies and gentlemen. Woo NASCAR and woo Texas.